Happy Thursday, Nashville. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier with you, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. That's right. We've got Dr. Crane with us today, flip-flopping with Connor. So Connor will be with Chase and Big Joe today. Nick, should be a fun show today.
It should be a fun show.
Excited
a lot of stuff
to
to talk about.
Yes, we are going to talk a good amount of Titans here in this first hour. Andrew Allegretta going to join us from Vanderbilt football from 10 a.m. to the end of the show, going to preview Vandy's football season, which gets underway in just 16 days against Charleston Southern. We'll talk about Diego Pavia, Martell Height, Eli Stowers, the second toughest schedule in the country for Vanderbilt, and much more. Also, Anders Nelson, the head coach of Vanderbilt volleyball, will join us at 11:15 as they look to return to play for the first time in 45 years as the program is renewed. Their first match coming up just around the corner. So plenty to get to on the show. But Dr. Crane, I got to start with the biggest story in all of sports, all of pop culture last night. Taylor Swift on the New Heights podcast with the Kelsey brothers yesterday. They got over 1 million people watching it once on YouTube. Just ridiculous.
That's crazy.
My fiance convinced me to watch some of it. We watched most of the first half, and then we watched the album announcement at the very end, which was obviously the big news of the podcast for anybody who watched. One thing I was really impressed by, Taylor Swift kind of knows ball. Like, she kind of knows football a little bit. And she mentioned that she knew nothing about football because she said she asked Travis Kelce when they first met, like, how weird was it to look across the line of scrimmage in the Super Bowl and see your brother? And Travis like, that doesn't happen. We both play offense. So, but she was talking about coverages. She's like, I know the difference between cover 4 and cover 2 and cover 0 and man coverage. And she goes, I was the first person to text Travis when the Chiefs drafted Xavier Worthy. So I just got to say, I'm impressed. Taylor Swift seems like a very smart person, and she has fully embraced the football life since starting to date Travis Kelce.
Yeah, between her and Caitlin Clark, they both know ball, and they're both Chiefs fans. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know, something about Taylor Swift. It's, I guess, osmosis. You just pick it up when you're around somebody like that.
I guess that's true. When you're around Travis Kelce like that and living in that world for 5-6 months out of the year. I guess it's 6 every year because the Chiefs always go to the Super Bowl. But I got to say, I'm not a huge Travis Kelce fan. Maybe that's just because he's always such a crybaby when he faces the Titans. Like, my favorite is David Long mocking him as he's walking over to the officials, or the game where Malik Willis almost won in Arrowhead, where Kelce didn't get flagged for taking his own helmet off in the field of play, and then got a flag called on the Titans for ripping off, I think it was Trey Avery's helmet. So I'm not a huge Travis Kelce guy, but I do have to say it was more entertaining than I thought it would be.
Taylor Swift puts on a show anywhere it is.
When Tatum came downstairs yesterday and was like, we should watch this podcast, I was like, oh God, I just want to turn baseball on or something. And I got to say, it was better than I thought. Chris in Nashville says, Taylor Swift, are you guys 12-year-old girls by? Chris, over 1 million people watch this. I don't think all 1 million of them were 12-year-old girls. And it was a sports story. They were on there with Travis Kelce. I'm not spending much time on this, but I thought it deserved a mention. News yesterday for the Titans. We've talked pretty much all August about how the Titans have the top waiver claim and how important that could be as you come down to roster cuts. When teams cut down to 53, the Titans are going to have first priority to go get who they want. They used that a little prematurely, going and getting Brian Asamoah, the linebacker who was cut by the Vikings last week or earlier this week, the former third-round pick in 2022 out of Oklahoma. Been a disappointment so far. When you're a top 70 pick like he was, you're expected to make an impact. He only has 30 career tackles, but I think this is how you have to use that top waiver claim, because nobody's getting cut who's going to come in and is going to immediately be a starter for you. Like, the 54th guy, even on the Eagles, who might be the deepest team in the league, isn't a top 20 player on your team. That's just not how the NFL works. But this is a guy who clearly has talent, and I believe what I saw is that he's a good special teams player. And the Titans not only need top-line talent, they need 35 through 53 to be better. And I think this is the right way to use that. Asamoah has been a disappointment, and I'm not saying I expect him to come in and be your starting inside linebacker, but he adds depth to a room that didn't have a whole lot of proven players. You cut Otis Reese, who clearly fell out of favor this year, and you add a guy with experience to Cedric Gray and James Williams. I think this is a good move for the Titans. Who knows? He may not even make the team, but I think it's worth a flyer on a guy who clearly was a talented, athletic player coming out of Oklahoma and maybe can make an impact for you, even if it's only on special teams.
Absolutely. And the Titans, when they had Mike Vrabel here, it was all about versatility, having guys play in different positions, if it's special teams, inside linebacker. Asamoah has that. That's the key assets he brings, like you're talking about. But also to that point, you have Asamoah, who's like you said, not proven, but there's two ways to look at the waiver claim. You go grab a veteran guy to help mature younger players, or you already have those guys on the roster and you go pick up younger players to help with the depth of all that, like you're saying. So I think that's the best way to look at it. There's two avenues. The Titans chose youth over age.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there may be some, I wouldn't call them cap casualties at the end of camp, but some guys who, yeah, they were good players back in the day, but it's like, you know what? We've got a younger guy who we want to see. You can go. Maybe that's a guy who makes a more immediate impact on your team. But for what you're looking for, this team, especially at inside linebacker, you need some guys who can step up and at least be competent. Because if Cody Barton gets hurt, that room is just a bunch of guys who haven't played very much. And Asamoah, even though he hasn't been, it's not like this guy has been the starting inside linebacker for the Vikings for 3 years, but he's a guy who, at the very least, you can put in there and know that this isn't the third NFL game that he's playing, like Cedric Gray or somebody like that. There was, I guess, the reason he was cut, or maybe one of the reasons he was cut, I guess he got into a fight with Will Fries, the guard who came over from the Colts this year. So when you're on the roster bubble like that and you start a fight, that usually doesn't end well for you. So maybe that's something the Titans have to rein in a little bit. But I just do I like the move. I think the Titans, they've talked about how important the top waiver claim is. And this is a guy who got cut, who has at least a little bit of a pedigree. And most of the people who get cut, like the Titans cut Ramel Keaton last week or something, like that's most of the guys who were getting put out there on waivers, and most of those guys you don't want on your football team because it's just all the other bad teams churning their 80 to 90 on the 90-man roster. But this is a guy who's made a 53 the last couple of years. I like the move. Even if he doesn't make the roster, it adds competition to that room. It adds depth to that room. And as we saw last year, special teams is so important. The Titans continuously gave up horrible field position because of special teams. So bring in a guy who I think I saw yesterday had a 77 PFF grade on special teams. That helps you. It does.
Yeah. And to your point about the whole fight earlier you're mentioning, I just think if you can control that, like Denard Wilson preaches that aggression, you got to have that aggressive mentality on defense. If you can control that, he's a key asset to Denard Wilson's depth on that defensive side of the ball. I think that's exactly what the Titans need, like we've talked about with depth, but especially if you can control that and turn it into turnovers, fumbles, interceptions, forced fumbles, whatever, sacks, that's it.
615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to chime in. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Again, the Titans using their top waiver claim priority. They take Brian Asamoah off waivers from the Vikings, waiving Otis Reese. And for Otis Reese, I do feel for him because the last couple years he has battled to make this team. Another converted safety like James Williams, who's shown flashes on special teams, but you could kind of see there was something in the water when he was a DNP on Saturday in Tampa. Like, it's very rare to see a guy who has made your 53-man roster be a healthy scratch in a preseason game. So clearly something went wrong with Otis Reese. We don't know what it was, but he wasn't going to be playing impactful snaps for this team this year. You bring in a guy who might be able to, but it is just so strange because Reese seemed to be a favorite over the last couple of years. And obviously it was Vrabel's staff when he first came in here, but I wonder what went wrong there with Otis Reese, that he went from kind of a training camp darling the last couple years where it's like, man, this guy just keeps flashing and making plays, to just completely falling out of the picture, and now being waived by the Titans yesterday to make room for Brian Asamoah. So we will see what Asamoah is able to do as he joins the team. Titans off today. They have their second preseason game tomorrow against the Falcons. Looks like the starters are going to play a couple of drives again against Atlanta. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you. This September, Tim McGraw will be performing at Trinitix's Rock the Cradle in Nashville, a meaningful event supporting newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org. Again, fun show coming up. We've got Dr. Crane, Nick Frazier behind the glass. Coming up at 10 a.m., Andrew Allegretta, the voice of Vanderbilt football, will join us for the rest of the show. He's been out at Vandy practice. He'll give us takeaways from what he's seen so far from the Commodores as they look to build off of a 7-6 season last year. Also, Vanderbilt volleyball head coach Anders Nelson will join at 11:15, previewing their first season in 45 years as they return to action. They've got a fun schedule planned, too. They're playing a game at Bridgestone. They're playing an outdoor game on Wyatt Lawn on Vanderbilt's campus, and a lot of their games will be in Memorial Gym. So excited to talk to Anders Nelson. Again, that is at 11:15. We are off and running on this Thursday. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Later today on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, the Nashville Sounds take on the Durham Bulls. First pitch is at 5:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Andrew Allegretta going to join us at 10 a.m. to talk some Vanderbilt football as the Commodores are just over 2 weeks from starting their season at home against Charleston Southern. Quickly, before we get back to the Titans, I just saw this. I know it came out about 30 minutes ago. Nicole Auerbach and Pete Thamel reporting the NCAA has notified those tied to the Michigan NCAA sign stealing infractions case that an announcement on the findings and punishments will be publicly released on Friday. So tomorrow, again, Pete Thamel from ESPN, Nicole Auerbach from NBC reporting that. Can I say, I don't really understand exactly what they're going to say. Like, Connor Stallions did a documentary about this already. Like,
It's all out.
Right. Like this, the Untold documentary maybe prematurely came out like a year ago at this point. But maybe to go tinfoil hat here, maybe this is where the Vols fans finally find out whether their conspiracy theories are correct. Because I know there are Vols fans out there who truly believe that Michigan gave South Carolina Tennessee's signals for that game where Hendon Hooker got hurt. They gave up 60-something points to Spencer Rattler, and it ruined their playoff chances. I still think it's a conspiracy theory. I don't think it actually happened. But the fact that they're announcing this and saying they're going to announce their findings, I don't know. Maybe there's something to it because what more is there to say? Like Connor Stallions, he did advanced scouting, and the Michigan already, Sharon Moore self-suspended for 2 specific games during the season or whatever it is. But I just don't know what else there is to say, unless maybe there is a wider spread problem of Michigan, like telling opponents of other teams what's coming. I have no idea.
Maybe stripping them of any accolades, like personal accolades for players, like with any form of trophies at the end of the year, something like that. I don't know. I mean, again, I don't know what else you can grab from that.
Right. Like the Central Michigan part of it, of Connor Stallions being on the sideline, that I think falls under some sort of, he crossed the line. But I'm wondering, and maybe this has come out, like what rule was Connor Stallions breaking by buying tickets to other games and just watching the sideline? Like anybody can do that. Like I understand maybe it's an unwritten rule. I never really understood why Connor Stallions, like, I felt like it was just trying to gain some sort of competitive advantage. And you can go watch it, and if you can figure it out, it's like in baseball. Like what the Astros were doing was cheating because they were they were electronically stealing signs and letting people know. But I played high school baseball. One of my head coach my junior year, he figured out what the signs were, and he instead of like banging a trash can, he told us, "Hey, if I say your last name, it's a fastball. If I say your number, it's a breaking ball." So like that, I think, is within the law, while using like an electronic means like the Astros did, that is against the rules. So I'm just wondering what exactly Connor Stallions did that could lead to infractions. I feel like it's just going to be some sort of slap on the wrist to Michigan.
Yeah, and in that documentary, he specifically said like other people were buying the tickets for him, and he was being propped up at the 50-yard line. So maybe that's where they can get him.
Yeah, okay. I get what you're saying is like if Michigan was funding it, then maybe that's an issue. I was thinking that the way Stallions talked about it in the documentary, and maybe he was just trying to, cover for Michigan and
save a little face,
be the fall guy. But it sounded like he was just addicted to trying to help Michigan win at all costs. So he was doing this all by himself. I guess that's true. If Harbaugh was directing him to do it, then I think maybe there's more there, but
because it delved into him having a photographic memory, memorizing certain hand signals. I'm like, dude, this is more complex than I thought.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who, again, playing high school baseball, there was one year I didn't play much, and I made it my job to like see if I could steal their signs, and I never figured it out. Never. Like every time I thought I had a beat on it, I was like, all right, he's putting the 4 down there, and that was the change up. It's like all right, never mind. I can't figure it out. So I don't know. I think he was just a smart guy, and we'll see what the NCAA is actually going to come out with. The Michigan has tried to self-punish as much as they possibly can, but I don't know. The NCAA, they kind of lost me on their ability to punish after the whole North Carolina thing. Like that, the North Carolina did not have their athletes going to classes. They had fake degrees. And the NCAA basically said that since those classes were open to other students than athletes, they couldn't do anything. Like they lost me on that one.
Yeah.
UNC should have gotten the death penalty for that.
And also for Michigan's standpoint and NCAA, I mean, NCAA is obsolete. So I see why they're trying to capitalize on all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just trying to get as much money as possible with all this new air quotes salary cap that's now being implemented into college sports.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what comes out of this, because the NCAA, I mean, when's the last time the NCAA actually meaningfully punished anybody? Like, they punished Tennessee a little bit for the whole Jeremy Pruitt thing, but it was more, they pretty much just give out slaps on the wrist. And I think they kind of know that their authority's mostly gone. And I really don't expect much to come of this. But who knows? Again, putting the tinfoil hat on, there, maybe it could be bigger than everybody thinks. And maybe Michigan was trying to influence other games, because of course that crosses the line. Like, sending advanced scouting reports to other teams to make sure Tennessee or Clemson loses to help your playoff hopes, that is definitely something that would deserve NCAA violations. I don't believe it. I've said from the jump that I think it's a conspiracy theory, but who knows? Maybe I'll be proven wrong tomorrow when these findings come out.
I don't know. You mentioned about all the self, taking yourself out of things, like for Michigan, Connor Stallions and all that. They're taking themselves out, doing that self, I guess, discipline, whatever it is. They're sure on more. That just leads to more red flags for me. There is something deeper.
Right.
Because there's so much of it. Like you talked, there was like 2 selected games. Like he was like, oh, I'm going to select this game and this game I'll be suspended from.
Yeah.
That just leads me to think there's something else.
It was like, did he suspend himself for weeks 3 and 4 or something like that? Because he didn't want to miss the Oklahoma game in week 2. And then you get full on into conference play after that. I think he is missing 1 conference game. And you know what? The one part of this that also just makes you think a little bit more, and this isn't a novel thought, but Harbaugh leaving for the NFL, maybe he knew something was coming. I don't know. I'm excited to read this because I just don't 100% understand what the violations are going to be and how big the punishments are going to be, because this is something like we really haven't seen before. And it is kind of in a gray area of everybody advanced scouts, but how far are you able to go and who's able to be involved in it? But you're right. It stinks a little bit with Michigan self-imposing these punishments and Harbaugh winning a national championship and just jumping ship and saying, you know what? I fulfilled what I said I was going to do. And I went and got a national championship for my alma mater, and I'm getting the heck out of here before these punishments come down. So again, Pete Thamel from ESPN reporting that the NCAA is going to release their findings and their sanctions on Michigan for the sign stealing scandal that's been going on for years now. Again, I don't know, like, somehow before the NCAA finished their investigation, a full documentary on Connor Stallions has already come out. So we will find out more about that tomorrow. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts on the Michigan scandal, if you're a Vols fan out there hoping that your conspiracies are confirmed tomorrow, let us know. 615-737-1025. I did have a thought on the Titans. Everybody's making a whole lot about Cam Ward and his comments yesterday. And Cam Ward saying he has a top 5 wide receiver core in the NFL. That's just disingenuous. It's not true. It's the same thing. That is the same thing as him saying Treylon Burks is a top 5 receiver and Tajay Spears is a top 5 running back. Like, he's just trying to hype up his guys. But he did say he thinks the Titans can have a top 10 offense. Not likely. But I wanted to look and see what last year, what was the 10th best offense and what would that look like if the Titans were able to do that? How many sacks would they give up? How many yards would Cam Ward throw for? What would it take to be a top 10 offense, however unlikely it may be? We'll talk about that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, next man up, 1025 The Game.
Now that you've had these three joint practices, just how do you feel like this offense stacks up against pro defenses? You've seen it live. How do you feel this stacks up?
Well, I think we honestly have the ability to be a top 10 offense. but also it goes on every guy in that huddle, including myself, bringing the right mindset every day. And us also playing together. I think that's the biggest things that we always play together. We never point fingers at each other on both sides of the ball. And we just got to always have that mindset that we can be the best offense in the NFL. And then it really just comes with just us caring about each other on the field, off the field. And I think a lot of that stuff will translate to the game.
That was Cam Ward after yesterday's joint practice, saying he thinks the Titans could have a top 10 offense in the NFL this year. I doubt it, but the season hasn't been played yet, so we have no idea what's going to happen. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Andrew Allegretta from Vanderbilt Football going to join us at 10 a.m. for the rest of the show. We'll preview the Commodores' upcoming season. But I had a thought on this. You know, it is very, very, very unlikely the Titans are going to have a top 10 offense this year, just considering who they have on the roster and a rookie quarterback. But I wanted to look and see what a top 10 offense last year looked like and what the differences could be for the Titans to be able to achieve that. And funny enough, Nick Frazier, I don't know if you've looked at the grid. Do you know who the 10th best offense in the NFL was last year?
I gave it a little gander. The Broncos?
It was the Denver Broncos with a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. So the Broncos averaged 25 points per game last year. The Titans averaged 18.7, and that was good enough for 27th in the league. And I'm doing this on points per game because, as we know from the Titans' defensive stats last year, yards per game can be a little bit misleading when it comes to how good you actually are. So I looked at the differences between these two teams, and it's funny because when you look at the averages, it's not that different. Last year, Bo Nix averaged 6.7 yards per attempt. The Titans, between Levis and Rudolph, actually averaged 6.8 yards per attempt. Rushing, both teams averaged 4.1 yards per attempt. Each team had 1,000-yard receiver. Cortland Sutton had 1081 for the Broncos. Calvin Ridley had 1017. They had a couple of guys in the 400 to 500 range. Nick Westbrook-Akine, Chigakonkwo for the Titans, Marvin Mims, Devon Vele for the Broncos. So when you look at just the raw counting stats and the averages, it looks about the same. Yardage-wise, it's not that much different. The Broncos passed for about 180 more yards last season than the Titans did. They ran for 50 yards more than the Titans did. The difference is what me and Corey Curtis talked about yesterday, the catastrophic plays from your quarterback. That is really the only difference. And it was funny to look at because you look at the stats and they're almost identical, except last year, Titans quarterbacks were sacked 52 times. Bo Nix was sacked 24 times. So half as many sacks, less than half as many sacks for the Broncos. And turnovers, the Broncos turned the ball over 19 times last year. The Titans turned it over 34 times. So almost twice as many turnovers. So, you know, when you look at a top 10 offense, it's not likely the Titans end up being a top 10 offense, but it is just funny to look and see, really, if you just limit the turnovers, limit the sacks, it puts you in that range, just like the Broncos last year, even with a rookie quarterback.
Isn't that funny how you can have a decent offensive line and you can actually be productive? I mean, that's all the Titans have to have. And luckily this preseason, they haven't heard anything of the offensive line. It's been decent. It's
crazy. And I was scrolling through it and I'm like, I can't believe that. It looks almost identical. Yards per attempt, yards per rush. There was no like elite receiver on either team. Tony Pollard was the best running back between those two teams. The Broncos didn't have any running back with more than 600 yards last year. But the turnovers and the sacks, that's the big difference. And that's all it was last year that separated the Titans from being a team that scores 19 points per game and a team that scores 25 points per game, is they gave it away almost twice the rate of the Broncos, and they got sacked at almost or over twice the rate of the Broncos. You look at like third down percentage, the Titans were 37%, 38% converting third downs and 53% in the red zone. The Broncos were a little bit better. That could be another reason, is that when in crunch time, when you needed to get a first down, they were a little bit better there. Down in the red zone, they were a little bit better there. And of course, in terms of record, the Broncos defense was way better than the Titans defense was. But it is turnovers and sacks. Corey Curtis was talking about it yesterday about the catastrophic drop back percentage that Bo Nix in college had a 2% catastrophic dropback percentage where 2% of his dropbacks he got sacked or threw an interception. 1 out of 50. Last year, it was about 1 out of 8 for the Titans. No, more than that. I think it was like 15%. So if you just bring that down, this team could be better. I still don't think they're close to a top 10 offense, but if you cut the turnovers from 34 into, let's say, the low 20s, you throw 12 picks, lose 10 fumbles throughout the year. Still not great, but better. And you get sacked 35 times, twice a game, instead of 3 times per game. That could add 3 or 4 points to your average just from not giving the ball away and avoiding those drive-killing sacks that put you behind the chains. I'm not saying we know Cam Ward can do this, but it is a good sign that you hope a better quarterback and a better offensive line to limit some of those big mistakes that we saw last year.
Yeah, and when you mentioned turnovers and sacks, for me, listening to Cam Ward say that, if I take him literally on that, it's more on him than it is the offensive line.
Yep.
Because as of right now in the preseason, he's the one turning the ball over. It's
right.
Interception after interception, and hopefully he's learning from those. But I believe Cody Barton spoke with them after one of the practices. I think it was PK talking about this, that he was giving him a tell. And he's like, hey, what am I doing wrong so I can fix this? If he can fix that, again, I think you would see huge improvements.
Right. Cam Ward has turned the ball over too much in practice so far. So that is a concern, but it is you like to hear what he said yesterday of, when he left that ball in bounds and threw the pick, pain. That's all he felt was pain. And he's like, I just got to learn not to do that. And he said, throw it through the opposing coach's head. So I think Cam needs to, he needs to pretend that there's a scrum going on the sideline and just fire the ball into it when he needs to throw the ball away. Chip from Mount Juliet on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says the Titans need to stop setting the high expectations this early, especially after the horrid season last year. It's not the Titans. It's just Cam Ward. Like, everybody else seems to be tempering expectations for what this team's going to be. Like, Cam Ward, I like it. You gotta put confidence into your team. If you go up to the podium and say, yeah, we might be average this year, maybe a little below average, that doesn't, people aren't going to follow you if you say that. If you believe in your team, they're going to believe in you. So I have no problem with him saying it, but we have to go through it and actually look and say, okay, that's probably not going to happen.
Mid.
Dustin from Hopkinsville said, Ward already showed me he's going to fit right in on the blowing sunshine. True Titan right there, just like the org. I mean, like Cam Ward, I don't think he's doing it to blow sunshine. I think he's doing it because he's confident. Like, it's the same thing as saying Brian Callahan is the best coach in the NFL. Like, it's not true. Factually, it's not true. But you have to have confidence in your guys, and you have to outwardly show confidence towards your guys because that's your job as a leader. Dustin also says they have Sean Payton in Denver. Plug Levis in under Payton and on the Broncos offense. I bet Levis is still on this team and looking promising. I don't know about that. Like, Bo Nix and Will Levis could not be more polar opposites in terms of quarterback play. Let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam in Portland wants to talk about Cam Ward. Adam, good morning. What you got?
What's up, Jake, man? Hey, I think you're hitting on it pretty good, is that we don't really know what this offense is, especially last year. The offense couldn't run properly ever because the line was so atrocious. So I don't know. I'm not defending Will Levis. I think even if he had clean pockets, you can't take those decisions out of that dude's head. Like, especially doing it 2 weeks in a row. Doing it the first time, I'm like, okay. Doing it 2 weeks in a row, I'm like, get him out of here. Like, I was over week 2 against the Jets. It was over. But the problem that we have, even if Cam has this, we could be top 10, which I'm not saying he can't. This is the NFL. They're all pros. I watched that defense the other day get the one sack that they got, and then that Tampa was easily able to get a first down after that. I think our defense is going to be so bad. And you don't just take L'Jarius Sneed over a year, whatever, removed from playing football and plug him in and he'd be fixed. He wasn't good whenever he was healthy and on the team. He wasn't doing anything. So imagine him sitting for a year. I can't see how our defense is going to be great. And so Cam, yeah, you could have a good top 10. I mean, you might, but you still might be like a 4-win team with a top 10 offense because you're going to have to score 48 points a game to be able to keep up with these guys. So that's what I worry about. If you look back on it, Jake, I don't know if you guys remember like the early Titans, but the Javon Curse and Kenny Holmes even, and then we got Kevin Carter, and then even you go up to like 2008, it was Van Bosch and Albert Hainsworth. We always had a good pass rush when our teams are good. I don't know who could get 3 sacks on this team. So I really worry about that defense.
Yeah, Adam, I agree with you. I think the Titans defense is going to be pretty bad this year. Like there's just not a whole lot of hope for me. You would need so much to go right for that defense to be good. The offense, there's so many question marks. And like Adam said, you just have no idea. I don't think they're going to be a top 10 offense. I don't even think they're going to be a top half of the league offense. I'd probably put them low 20s. I think there will be improvement. They were 27th last year in points per game. I would say there will be an improvement, but a marginal improvement. But if you would ask anybody at this time last year, will the Broncos be a top 10 offense in scoring? Everyone would have said no. So I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, like Cam Ward says, that it's not the craziest thing in the world to believe that they could take a big jump. I don't know if it's that big of a jump, but you look at the Broncos, the biggest difference between the Titans and Broncos last year was they didn't hurt themselves. They had a better offensive line and they had a quarterback who didn't make stupid mistakes. If the Titans can do that, it's going to make them better. Let's go to Trey on our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey, good morning. Thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Good morning, guys. How y'all doing?
Doing great.
Hey, as far as what y'all have been playing, as far as the pressures on Cam Ward, I think that he believes that they can be good, but from what I've seen, the glimpses of what I've seen of Cam Ward, it looks good, but it needs a little work. It needs a lot of work. You know, we don't have any 100 yards receivers that give us 100 yards per game, and I don't think we can match points right now. I don't believe we can match points with the bottom half of the league. And until we can produce points and put points on the board, as far as the fans go, that I know, we're out on Cam Ward right now. You know, putting him in for 2 series, that's not showing the fans that, okay, we're with this guy. You know, putting him in, you know, it's just really weird right now, the vibe with the Titans. And y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Trey. No one should be all the way in. No one should be all the way out on Cam Ward after one preseason game. Like, he's going to get better. There's going to be development. And if there's not, Brian Callahan's going to be the one who gets blamed for that. Like, you've got minimum 20 games of Cam Ward as the starting quarterback in the regular season for this team before you have any idea what you have. Maybe you start to see the growth before that. Maybe you start to see him not be very good before that. But everybody just hit the brakes a little bit. He's played 2 series in a preseason game. Like, let's get to mid-October before we start saying I'm out on Cam Ward. Please. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts on the Titans, again, Andrew Allegretta going to join us in about 15 minutes to talk some Vanderbilt football for the rest of the show. Jake Lyman, Dr. Crane, Nick Frazier here on Next Man Up, 1025 The Game. Wrapping up the first hour here on Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier with you. Andrew Allegretta from Vanderbilt Football will join us coming up at 10 for the rest of the show, previewing Vandy's 2025 season. Again, just over 2 weeks away. Also, Anders Nelson, head coach of Vanderbilt Volleyball, will join us at 11:15 as they prepare to return to play for the first time in nearly a half century. Quickly before we go back to text line, Adam Schefter tweeting, ESPN sources, Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice is expected to have his disciplinary hearing with the NFL on Tuesday, September 30th in New York. So Rice is now likely to be able to play the first 4 weeks of the season before any potential discipline is imposed. So Rashee Rice likely going to be able to play the first 4 games, which is big for the Chiefs because their first 4 games are against the Chargers, Eagles, the Giants, and the Ravens. So they will have Rice for those 4 games, 3 of which are against possible Super Bowl contenders. Like, I don't know if I put the Chargers fully in there, but
I'd say they're halfway, and they're on the fence.
You got the Chargers in Brazil, and then Eagles Super Bowl rematch, and then, of course, the Ravens, who are always in the thick of things in the AFC. So Rashee Rice will be able to play in those first 4 games before his disciplinary hearing with the NFL. We were just having a conversation about Cam Ward saying the Titans could have a top 10 offense in the NFL this season. And, it's unlikely. But we look back and the 10th best offense in the NFL was the Denver Broncos with a rookie quarterback. And the big difference was just that they didn't throw interceptions and they didn't get sacked. Like that is pretty much the only difference between the Titans being the 27th best offense and a top 15 offense in the NFL. Nevada Josh on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com says, all I know is if the Titans suck this year and the Browns make it to the playoffs with Sanders, I'm going to start a 1,000,000-man march to Amy's house. Like, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, just separate them in your mind. I understand the comparisons are going to happen, but what Shedeur Sanders does has nothing to do with what Cam Ward does. And I'm rooting for Shedeur Sanders. Like, I think he's a good guy. He deserves an opportunity to go out there and prove whether he can be a franchise quarterback. But I'm very disappointed that he's not playing this weekend because it just leaves another week for people to say stuff like this, where if Cam goes out and throws a pick tomorrow night in Atlanta, the texts of they drafted the wrong quarterback, should have taken Shedeur, are going to continue because the only thing people have seen from Shedeur Sanders in the NFL was him throwing 2 touchdowns against third stringers last week against Carolina.
And for the people that say otherwise about Shedeur Sanders, he now has more film on himself than anybody else does as a rookie quarterback. Guy played a full game.
Played 3 quarters.
Yeah, essentially a full game for rookies.
Because everybody in that Cleveland room is hurt right now. And you got Joe Flacco, who's healthy, but he's 45 years old or whatever. So they're not going to throw him out there in a preseason game. But Kenny Pickett hurt his shoulder, hamstring for Dylan Gabriel, and now an oblique injury for Shedeur Sanders. So, I mean, and obviously Deshaun Watson's not playing. So it's going to be all Tyler Huntley, I think, for their next preseason game. Shedeur Sanders, first of all, is not going to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, at least to start the year. There will come a point where they get to 1-5 or whatever it is, and they say, you know what? We might as well see what we got in Shedeur this year before we go take Arch Manning, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller, insert quarterback here in next year's draft. So we're going to see Shedeur Sanders start football games, likely going to see Shedeur Sanders start against the Titans late in the season. And we will probably see Ward versus Sanders head-to-head. But I'm just asking Titans fans out there, separate them in your head because it was not a decision. There was no decision between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. One of them went first overall and had teams trying to trade up for him for the first overall pick. The other one went in the 5th round behind guys like Dylan Gabriel and Jalen Milroe and Tyler Shuck. Like, it wasn't a decision, so separate them. What Sanders does has nothing to do with what Cam Ward does.
You just got to get that out of your head. You're right. I mean, to think that people are trying to, compare apples to apples, you can't. There's just 2 different sample sizes. I'm looking at it from a preseason perspective. Cam Ward only had 2 series.
Right. And I mentioned on Monday, because I knew people were going to say this, that Cam Ward in his 2 series, 5 for 8, 67 yards, led a touchdown drive. Shedeur Sanders, his first 2 series was 3 for 7 with 30 yards, punted and had a turnover on downs. Like, if Shedeur Sanders had played just 2 series, we're having a completely different conversation. I just, I've had this rant twice now this week. Separate them. Sanders and Ward, their paths do not need to intertwine. It's not like Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston, who are picked back to back, and you're always going to be comparing them because the Bucs could have taken Marcus Mariota, and the Titans would have had to take Jameis Winston at that point. Like, they were intertwined. The Browns passed on Shedeur Sanders like 8 times before they finally picked him. Like, this, it's not an apples to apples comparison.
Can we just, I guess, say thanks Mel Kiper for all this?
Right.
Because
I mean,
he's the one that kind of ran this up for the most part.
I mean, having Mel Kiper talk about Shedeur Sanders while Cam Ward is walking up to shake Roger Goodell's hand, like, it's ridiculous. Dustin from Hopkinsville. How do you know the teams trying to trade up didn't want Sanders? Because they had like 7 chances to take him and they didn't. Like, if they were going to trade up to the number 1 pick to take him, like the Giants, they wanted to trade up to the number 1 pick. They then traded up again to take Jackson Dart over Shedeur Sanders. Like, it's ridiculous. Shedeur Sanders, I think he's going to be a fine NFL quarterback, likely a backup, but he was not worthy of the first overall pick. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. That wraps up my rant for the day. Andrew Allegretta from Vanderbilt football going to join us for the rest of the show. He's been out there at practice. He'll have some thoughts on the Commodores as they look to build off of a 7-win season, including a bowl win in the Birmingham Bowl over Georgia Tech. Also, we'll have Vanderbilt volleyball head coach Anders Nelson coming up at 11:15. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Second hour, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We got a special guest in studio for the rest of the show today. Andrew Allegretta, the voice of Vanderbilt football and baseball, joining us for the next 2 hours. We're going to preview some Vandy football, talk some Vandy volleyball with Anders Nelson joining us at 11:15 and much more. Andrew, thanks for coming in. Should be a fun couple hours here as we get ready for Vandy's new season coming up in about 2 weeks.
Looking forward to it. What's going on?
Not much. Lots of Titans talk this week, so I'm kind of excited to break it up a little bit here.
Okay.
I can only talk about Cam Ward on the practice field so much. So at least there's a game tomorrow night, but I'm excited to talk some Vanderbilt because college football's right around the corner.
Your Cam Ward vibes are pretty positive so far, huh? Generally speaking.
Yes.
I get that he's thrown too many
Practice
interceptions
interceptions
and all of that sort of stuff, but like athletically, the skill set, the mindset, the makeup.
I was one of the first, I think, to be all in on Ward. Like in March or February, I started to come on the Saturday show and say he's my guy. So I'm behind him. You can't get too caught up in training camp. Like, let's see what he does when the live bullets start flying.
I think if you had talked to us at Vanderbilt at this time last season, we would not have known what was coming our way for the 2024 season.
Right.
Like the offense was not put together yet. Diego Pavia was a leader in the truest sense of the word, but I don't know that he had everything put together offensively. There was still stuff that was clicking at this point last year. So all of that is to say training camp and fall camp is kind of, it's just that. Like you're working stuff out. It's hard to really know until they start playing games.
Like last year, heading into fall camp, I believe Clark said, like, it was a competition between Diego and Nate Johnson. It's like, man, looking back, you're like, man,
how was it even close?
Right. Like, how was Pavia not the immediate starter? And it's just, you don't know until the guys go out there and you see Diego Pavia in the Virginia Tech game in week 1, where it's like, you're controlling the game and Virginia Tech punches back and takes the lead. And in the past, you'd seen Vanderbilt. It's like, oh, well, we competed and that was it. And Diego just punched right back and took it to overtime and then won the game. So,
I mean, you figured out everything that Diego Pavia was in that first game.
Right.
And it's so much fun that we get him back once again. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, for sure. At this point last year, it was still a little bit of a question mark. It was like, okay, we love Diego's leadership. He runs the offense really well. But boy, Nate Johnson really has a lot of skills. Like, how do we have him factor into the offense at some point? And it became ultimately a non-factor. Like, he did a good job stepping in a couple of times when Diego went down for a few series. But generally speaking, Diego took that as well he should. He was fantastic, obviously.
Yeah, Diego, you saw it in game 1, and he really never looked back. Obviously, was not quite 100% towards the end of the season, but looking forward,
really midway through the season.
Right.
I think he got popped in that Kentucky game.
Right.
And
that's what he said. Yeah. And I mean, still able to find a way to beat Auburn. And, you know, it was always going to be tough with the way South Carolina was playing down the stretch. Night game at LSU is never easy. And then, of course, Tennessee playing for their playoff lives. So, but then he got a little healthier for that Birmingham Bowl game and came right out and got
set a program record.
Right.
5 touchdowns. So, yeah, he was fine.
He figured it out. And he will be back this year. Excited to see Diego back on the field. You've been out there at practice a lot throughout fall camp. How's the team looking? And do you see the belief in this team that, you know, yeah, they went 7-6 last year, 5-win improvement from the year before, but there's a next level to get to this season?
I think so. I mean, I think Diego has said as much. Like, he did not come back to go 6-6 or 7-6.
Right.
I think my takeaway, and I don't know where the season goes, and predicting wins and losses is a brutal game. But I think what's clear from being out of camp is this is the most talented team that Clark has had in 5 seasons. I don't think there's a lot of question to that. You have your quarterback back, and that is huge. He's a superstar. You do have enough pieces offensively. I feel like the conversation for Vanderbilt in the preseason has gotten lost a little bit about, did Vanderbilt go out and do enough to get playmakers to help Diego Pavia? I still think you've got a lot of tools to work with. Cedric Alexander is still a good running back. And you've got these pieces that have come in, Trey Richardson, and we can get to some of the specific guys. But I do think you have a bunch of pieces to work with offensively for Tim Beck. And then the bet that they made, which is pretty clear, is we're going to invest our resources on the line play, offensive line play, defensive line play. And you can see the cornerback position has taken a huge step forward. It was such a part of the game plan that Vanderbilt was going to play 2 high safeties and prevent the big play last year because, one, that's part of the overall strategy to victory for Vanderbilt, and that worked out, but also because of the players that they had at some of the outside positions. That cornerback room is absolutely better this year. I don't think there's a lot of doubt to me that the team overall, talent-wise, is for sure the most talented that Clark has had in 5 seasons, which frankly I think you would expect kind of coming off the season that they had and the way that the program has built up all of its resources in the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, and the offensive line you mentioned, they brought in a few transfers there. I know Gunnar Givens from Virginia Tech. Was there an Oklahoma State transfer they brought in?
Isaiah Glass.
Yes. So,
and then there's Bryce Henderson, who's 6'8", coming from South Dakota.
Right. Yes, I remember seeing that.
And then there's Sterling Porsche, coming from Texas Tech, I believe. So there's a whole reworked offensive line. There's Jordan White, who's going to be the center. He's a transfer from Liberty. I don't know exactly how the depth chart's going to work out there, but Jordan White's going to be one of the better centers in the country, provided he stays healthy. I think one of the things that has been talked about a lot with Vanderbilt, as I've seen it, is that, I don't know about the offensive line, right? You have a ton of turnover there. The offensive line last year was good enough to get the job done and allow Vanderbilt to have a winning season. Provided they stay healthy, I think there's a lot of confidence that the turnover is okay because of the people that are coming in are hugely talented.
Right. Turnover is not always a bad thing if you're bringing in good players.
Right.
Yeah, you lost some good players, but you're bringing in good ones to replace them. I don't know if a lot of people know this about the way they format the offensive line with the quick side and the strong side and how they flip. Like I don't know a ton of other programs or teams who do that and don't have a left tackle, left guard, right tackle, and that they, based on the way the play is supposed to run, they can actually swap sides of the line, which is I think it's a big reason why that offense works, is because you can not only like flip receivers to one side, but you can flip the entire formation.
I don't think there's another offensive line in the country that I know about, certainly at the Power 4 level.
I'd never seen it
that
before.
Does that. It's not an entirely new thing. That's Chris Klinakis, the offensive line coach, who was one of the developers of the pistol formation and the pistol offense with Colin Kaepernick at Nevada years ago. He was a huge part of that, which is obviously making sense the way that Vanderbilt runs their offense now with Diego, a lot of times out of the pistol. That's a Chris Klinakis thing. And I think for a Vanderbilt team, it allows you to get your best skills in the right position for the right play, which is great. Is Vanderbilt going to have the same number of quote unquote stars on its offensive line as Alabama? Unlikely, but you've got a 6'8". I think he's going to be the strong tackle in Bryce Henderson, right? Yeah, he's the run guy. So it allows you to kind of move him around and put him in the right spot for how you want the formation. Plus, there's still plenty of disguises for the way that they want to do that. So it's not a dead giveaway all over the place. And Tim Beck has been a wonderful addition to this staff, obviously, the offensive coordinator.
Well, and it's funny because, talking about the Titans all the time, so much was made of, well, you drafted J.C. Latham last year. He was a right tackle at Alabama. You're going to have him flip to play left tackle, and now he's playing right tackle again. Can he do it? It's like, man, at Vanderbilt, could be any given play you're playing left tackle and right tackle.
Yeah.
Obviously, college and the pros very different, but it is just funny how much is made in the NFL about, can he make the switch from left tackle to right tackle? And it's like,
offensive line is a crazy spot, man. It really is. There is so much nuance in that position, right? So Chase Mitchell spent a good chunk of the season for Vanderbilt last season, I think at right tackle, not right tackle, but the strong tackle position,
right,
for Vanderbilt. And this season he gets to move inside. He's more of a guard. He's a guard by nature. They needed him outside, but just the way that his arm strength, the length of his arms, his footwork, like that's a position that seems, it's almost like, we can pretend that we know what it's like to throw a curveball and how to put pressure on a baseball and all that sort of stuff. Okay. Until you're a real pitcher, and know how to do it, that's a different deal. How do you spot up a splinker that Paul Skeens throws on the outer right? It's a different deal. We can pretend that we know how
You can go out in the backyard and you can give it a shot.
Give it a shot. Good luck. I just think the offensive line position is just so, man, it's so nuanced. Of all of the positions in football, it's just like those guys have to be so brutally cohesive, and you have to have the right skill set at the right spot on the line and all that sort of stuff. And you move people around because you have to, out of injuries and everything. But man, those dudes are so gifted, strong, and the way that offensive line coaches work, that's a heck of a position.
Right. It's so hard to understand that stuff because like the casual football fan can look at a quarterback and say, that's a good quarterback or a bad quarterback. Same with running back, receiver, but offensive line play is like Paul Kaharski right before he left on Robbie and Rexroad was saying, are Titans fans on Sundays going to be paying attention to the improvement of Femio Ladejo's hand placement when he's making his rushes?
That's what I'm saying.
It's just like the casual fan doesn't understand all the little nuances that go on when it comes to the trenches.
And that's okay.
Right.
It is genuinely okay. But that's what I'm talking about. And I think you can see a tackle that's getting beat off the edge by a really good edge rusher and the quarterback's under duress. And you can see guys that are getting beats. We all recognize you can go get a cup of coffee and say, I don't like that cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You're not going to know how it was brewed, and that's fine. But I'm just saying I'm impressed with the way that those guys operate because it is so deeply nuanced. There are, like Karski is talking about, hand placement and first step and the way that you work together in zone blocking schemes, all that sort of stuff. It's above my depth knowledge. I think to bring it back to Vanderbilt, they have guys in the right seat on the bus more this year, perhaps, than even last year. And it was an offense that produced for them.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have questions for Andrew Allegretta about Vanderbilt football, he's in studio with us for the rest of the show. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next, some key players for Vanderbilt. We got Martell Height playing both ways for Clark Lee this year. You've got Eli Stowers, a possible first-round pick, and many more. We'll dive in to Vanderbilt's roster coming up next. Jake Lyman, Andrew Allegretta, Nick Frazier, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. This week's Nashville's Best Deal is Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Join Fat Bottom this Saturday for their Lucky 13 anniversary party at 800 44th Avenue North in Nashville. It's a full day of casino-themed fun, live tattoos from Black 13, face painting, balloon art, games, and of course, ice-cold beer. Get a $100 gift card, half off while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals. Plus, don't miss their Lucky 13 anniversary party this Saturday at Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Jake Lyman, Andrew Allegretta, Nick Frazier with you. Next man up. Vanderbilt football, 16 days away from their opener over at First Bank Stadium against Charleston Southern. August 30th. I believe is that a night game? 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. Man, I can't believe it's almost here. And I've been seeing the pictures of the stadium. It looks almost completely finished.
It's going to be great.
It looks awesome.
I'm really excited to get everybody in there and check it out. Exactly how it all shakes out for August 30th.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not a contractor. I've got no idea. But everything I have seen, all of the tours that I've been able to do have been fantastic on that place.
Well, you mentioned week 0, and, it's coming up. It is a week from Saturday's week 0, and Hawaii always seems to play week 0. They played here 2 years ago, and that was the dangling scoreboard game where everybody's looking like, how do they have a scoreboard hanging from 2 cranes? It's crazy to see the progress.
I don't want any slander on that, by the way. I miss that dangling scoreboard.
Me too.
That's ours.
I don't miss that game though, because the rain delay.
Yeah.
It was like a 7-hour football game. But
I miss the dangling scoreboard, man.
It was
like, I get that there's flaws to that system, but it's like it's our flaws, right? Like it's our trademark bizarre thing that we got to experience. I miss that dangling scoreboard for some reason.
It was so unique, and that was before the Huber Center was done too. So it was both end zones were construction.
It was nothing but pits over there.
It was
dirts, piles everywhere.
And it's crazy. We are 2 years almost to the day from there, and it's almost done. Like last year at this time, the college football video game had come out, and they had put the renderings in. So I remember playing at Vanderbilt Stadium. You could see how it was supposed to look, and now it's finally here.
You know what's crazy is all of the times these places put out renderings about what something's going to look like, and you go, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we've come pretty darn close to what the renderings look like from the entire time.
Right.
Like it all seems to be right there. And that is through if we're going to be frank, a bit of a difficult economic stretch for a lot of people. Prices have changed all over the place.
Sure.
And we've kept things pretty true. It's going to be fantastic. And I think it's going to be a good experience for everybody. And certainly one of the things that we had to do, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds because I don't know all of the details, but certainly Vanderbilt Stadium and now First Bank Stadium needed to upgrade the premium seating situation. And we've done that by like a factor of 10 with this, which is huge. And I'm really excited to allow that to happen. And I think, from just from my seat, what I'm really looking forward to is getting Jess Neely up and running as a pedestrian path and getting that Frist Athletic Village as a bit of a community space on football game days. We've been missing it for the past couple of years, which is fine and totally understandable because of the construction. But having that spot, you came from Virginia Tech and I was there for a long time. And anybody that has been to a place that has those sort of spaces on game day is fantastic. And we've had some of that with Vandyville and all of that sort of stuff. But as much as we can drag back closer to the stadium, and I'm sure we'll do that. I'm not part of every single planning meeting. But having that space that can be shared as a community, I'm really looking forward to that because it's a really cool time athletically for Vanderbilt to have the motivation, to have the engagement, to have a fan base, from, let's just say, 1 to 99. I've been told it's perhaps closer to 99, but from 1 to 99.
I heard that somewhere yesterday
I've been told. Anyway, to have a space that 1 to 99 can come together and enjoy Vanderbilt game days is going to be fun.
Yes, I'm excited to see when it's all finally done. I know Hawkins Field's going to be getting renovations soon, but it's good to see that, the big first project, the Huber Center on one end zone and the premium seating options on the other end zone, like that. It's going to be cool to see. I haven't been over there since the spring game. I don't think, like in the stadium, I haven't been in there since the spring game. So It looked good then. I'm sure that they've really filled in the gaps since then, and I'm excited to see it. Back to the football field. We mentioned Diego Pavia. Obviously, he is the straw that stirs the drink for Vanderbilt. Like he.
By the way, do you think there was any 99-year-olds walking the goalpost down to Broadway?
If I want to know what those 99-year-olds do if they can make that 2-mile trip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on. I'm sorry.
No, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
I get
I'd
what you're
say
saying.
one.
Yeah.
Out of that, all of the amount, probably one.
Okay.
They might have
That's
had
fine.
to take a stop at the Sprouts or the Whole Foods on the walk down, though.
Yeah. You think so?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe just.
But they were grads, right?
They
were
had
all-
to be.
They were only grads.
No, there's no such thing as non-Vandy grad.
All right. Go on. Go on. Go on.
Martell Height. We talked to him at SEC kickoff, and I can't wait to see what he does out there. Obviously, we saw last year the explosiveness as a punt returner and good cornerback, but to use him in all three phases, like Travis Hunter's the name that gets brought up, and we talked to him about how he played against Travis.
Played
Hunter.
against Travis in high school.
Yes, and so he knows what it takes to be a guy who plays both ways. Obviously, Travis was playing every snap on both sides. I don't think that's what Martell's going to be doing, but gives Vanderbilt another big weapon for them on both sides of the ball, and he's an electric returner, as we've seen.
He was the best punt returner statistically in the Southeastern Conference
Right.
last year. It's going to be really interesting to see how they use them and piece it all together, because that's a lot of snaps, and you're going to need them, right? And I don't think we've gotten a good sense of it so far this offseason and fall camp, just because he's been a little bit banged up at fall camp. So that has not allowed him to mix and match in the same way, perhaps, that you would like him to mix and match going into the season. But he's too talented not to try. And I don't think it's, I think the cynic viewpoint would be you're going to try him offensively as an admission to what you don't have offensively. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think we've seen Junior Sherrill take the top off the defense in fall camp. I think we've seen Trey Richardson be a guy that can get behind the defense and be used in a lot of different places. Of course, you still have Eli Stowers, a potential first rounder for Vanderbilt for the first time since 2008, I believe. And then you've got Bryson Coleman, who got a little bit dinged up himself, but he's 6'3", 6'4", whatever it is, at that same flex tight end position. So you've got some size. I don't think using Martell offensively is an admission to anything. I just think he's got that sort of skill set that he could be a factor for them. But the part of all of this that is going to matter is health. And not just his own health, but the health of others too. Like if the cornerback room takes a couple of lumps, you're not going to take him off of the cornerback spot, right? Because you're going to need him over there. So I don't know that Charleston Southern is going to tell us a bunch about how they use Martell Height, in part because he's been a little bit dinged up in fall camp. And because why would you throw everything out there for Charleston Southern with two back-to-back really big games coming with Virginia Tech and South Carolina? But it's really compelling to follow. We talked about it a lot down in Atlanta at Media Days, but I don't know that we're going to get a true sense of it until perhaps the month of September is finished.
Right. And you mentioned that health overall will have a lot to do with it. It's like if you're thin at cornerback,
you don't
taking
put
him
out
there, and
yeah.
you don't put him in harm's way on
Correct.
offense. If losing him would really hamstring you on the defensive side of the ball. For the rest of the defense,
I will say too, just the way he played as a punt returner.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, I don't know where this is going to shake out. But for a team that part of their formula for success was field position, you're certainly compelled to keep the SEC's best statistical punt returner as the punt returner, because the field position has been so critical for Vanderbilt last season. I don't know. But again, he's too talented and compelling not to try it and figure it out. And we know he did it both ways in high school, because we talked to him about that, going head to head with Travis Hunter.
He showed us the videos of Travis did. I believe he mossed him, and the catch went viral of 5-star Travis Hunter, but he showed us that he did get him a couple of times.
Yes.
So
yes. As a wide receiver.
Right.
So we'll see. I don't know, but it would be hard for me to think unless he is so significant offensively and you feel really good about a secondary choice as your punt returner, to move the SEC's best statistical punt returner off of that position for a team that values field position.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. You can get your texts or calls in if you have any thoughts, questions on Vanderbilt football for Andrew Allegretta, who is with us for the rest of the show. Coming up next, some other defensive standouts for Vanderbilt that I wanted to talk about. And also, it's a tough schedule for Vandy. Second hardest in the country, according to ESPN, only behind Florida. We will go through some of the tough stretches that Vandy will have to get through this season. Jake Lyman, Andrew Allegretta, Nick Frazier here on Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Halfway through the show, Jake Lyman, Andrew Allegretta, Nick Frazier with you, talking Vandy football. College football is now just 9 days away with week 0, and actually a good game in week 0 too. We got Farmageddon in week 0.
What's that?
Top 25 game, Iowa State, Kansas State.
Really?
Farmageddon.
That's compelling.
It's actually like a really important game for the Big 12 too.
I know.
So I'm excited it's in Dublin. Not a whole lot else on the schedule that looks great, but we do get one top 25 game in week 0. believe it's 11 a.m. Central Time kick next Saturday.
What season was that where Georgia Tech totally upended Florida State's season? Was that last year in Dublin, right?
Yep.
So perhaps we get part 2 of somebody upending somebody's season across the sea.
Right. Florida State coming in was a top 10 team. They ended up having 10 losses on the season.
That was a rough ride for Mike Norvell.
Yes, yeah. And we'll see what they can do this year with I don't know. We don't have to get too deep into it, but I don't know what's going on with their quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, coming out saying they're going to beat Alabama. And then I guess yesterday said that if he could do it over again, he wouldn't leave Boston College. So I don't know where his head's at or anything like that.
Didn't he stop playing midway through the season, like left the team last year, something like that with Boston College?
Maybe that's what he's saying is like, I would do it differently and like not quit on the team and still maybe enter the transfer portal. But like the way it came out was, I don't want to be here.
Yeah. I think optimistically it's the first version there.
Right.
Of what he's saying. He's a good quarterback.
Yes.
I don't know that he's a great quarterback, but he was good when we watched Boston College from time to time last year.
Yes.
And he played Missouri very, very tough.
Right. He did.
Last season in Missouri.
That was right before Vandy went out there. So yeah, we'll see what Florida State is this year, but Mike Norvell, I think you get some grace last year after you go 13-0, miss the playoff, and then you go 2-10. We'll see what happens this year. Back to Vanderbilt. We talked about some of the offensive playmakers, the Eli Stowers, Martell Height going to be out there, Cedric Alexander. But on the defensive side, Langston Patterson has been such a good player since he's come here, and I'm excited to see him back, along with Brandon Fontenette on that linebacking core. And I said this to Kevin when he was on with us last week. I think the player I'm most excited to see is right in the middle of that defensive line in Glenn Seabrooks, because he made plays last year, including an interception in game 1 of his college career. As a sophomore, I'm excited to see what he can do being a disruptor in the middle of that line.
Corday Sidnor, too, off of the edge. That's a really big name to follow. That is a guy that is getting NFL scout attention. I said like a half an hour ago that I thought this was the most talented team that Clark has had since he's been at Vanderbilt. I think this has been the busiest fall camp for NFL scouts out at practice that I have ever seen. Every single practice, there's a couple of guys, which is, again, if you're talking about Southeastern Conference programs, something that's not out of the ordinary. But for Vanderbilt to see that elevation is a reflection of the talent that's on the field. Corday was playing most of last season, but was banged up, was not 100% healthy. He's 100% healthy, and he's an edge rusher that can disrupt for Vanderbilt. And then you've got a ton of depth on that defensive line. There is no positions that took bigger strides in the offseason for Vanderbilt than the line play. And that's huge. And I think for Vanderbilt fans that have seen so many seasons, I suspect any one of those seasons or those chunk of seasons, like the James Franklin days, the line play was always elevated for Vanderbilt during those seasons. Of course, 2008, you had Chris Williams as a first-round draft pick for Bobby Johnson's team, and that was a very good season for Bobby Johnson and Vanderbilt and went to a bowl game. There is no positions that took bigger strides than the line play. Issa Wataha is huge in the middle for Vanderbilt. Physically and of importance. He is both huge. He's a guy that has not played a ton of football. People forget about it because he came from Germany. He was not really picking up organized football till very, very late in his youth development. Then you've got Linus Zunk, another guy that comes from overseas. You could go right down the line. You got Bryant, a transfer from Texas that's come here to Vanderbilt. You've got edge rushers and Miles Capers, and you can move a Nick Rinaldi, who also didn't pick up football until very, very late in his youth sports days, coming out of Massachusetts, who led the team in sacks, a walk-on, led the team in sacks with 6 a season ago. He's back. He's more of a linebacker, but you talk about the depth. He might be one of the best pure edge rushers that Vanderbilt has, and you can stick him on the end of the line. So, whether it's Glenn Seabrooks, great to see a local kid have that sort of success.
Right.
And such a huge moment in that first game versus Virginia Tech a season ago. But you've got pieces that the defensive line coaches, Coach Black, can use for Vanderbilt. And it's so interesting to see what that does. And again, that takes pressure off of everybody. There is no singular position on a defense that is going to, I don't think, matter more than everybody else. It is truly 11 guys doing their job, being in the right place at the right time and executing, and having more tools to play with for Coach Gregory, the defensive coordinator, for Clark Lee. Obviously, they have more pieces that they can mess around with. Again, their defense, I think, was pretty darn good a season ago, especially for what Vanderbilt needed it to be. But they played a lot of too high safeties and kept everything in front of them. It was both a blessing and a curse for Vanderbilt. The Texas game and the LSU game are examples of where it became a little bit of a curse, because there was so much star power out there for those two teams. You couldn't let them get behind you. But Quinn Ewers and Garrett Nussmeier picked you apart underneath.
Death by a million paper cuts.
Right. I don't think they have to be that in the same way this year because of the pieces that they have at corner, because the way the defensive line might be able to disrupt. The caveat to all of it is always health. And if there's an erosion there, who knows? We might go back to two high safeties and keeping everything in front of you. Vanderbilt's going to do that anyway. They're not all of a sudden going to be this cover zero team that's coming after the quarterback on every single play. But I just think that there's more options for Coach Gregory, the defensive coordinator, and Clark Lee to mess around with this season. And there's a ton of names on that defensive line that we haven't talked about him, but Zay Woods is coming back for Vanderbilt, who got banged up in the Georgia State game, an MTSU transfer that looked like he was going to be a factor. And he's kind of, as far as we can tell, maybe down a level on the depth chart so far this season, but they're going to rotate 8 guys, 9 guys, whatever it ends up being, which means Zay Wood is going to get out there and he could be a factor. He was disruptive. He's small. He's not huge, but if you want to get into like super wonky strength and conditioning stuff, there's a term, I'm throwing it around because I learned it and it sounds fun, called rate of force depletion. It basically means like how quickly and strongly can you get to your strength. And Zay is really good at that. Like he's not huge, he's not the strongest guy, but he gets to his top end strength faster than anybody else. Not anybody else, but he's way up there in terms of how quickly he gets to his top end strength, which is why he can be disruptive in the middle. I just talked to Coach Steiner one time and he gave me that term, and it's a good term.
It's very interesting. I never really thought of it that way. It's like acceleration versus speed.
Sure. Yeah. It's how well you can accelerate to your strength.
Right.
And he accelerates to his strength pretty quickly. I just think he came back from injury and he can be a factor too. And he's kind of down the depth chart. The defensive line is really interesting this year for them in the way that not only they can be a factor early, but they can be a factor late in the season with whatever it is, Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee down the stretch. Like there's no doubt Vanderbilt faded just from a fatigue standpoint and a health standpoint. Those are talented teams with LSU and South Carolina and Tennessee last year. And the results may have been the same, but I don't think they were able to play the way that they wanted to and get the same impact because of just the fatigue down the stretch. If you're rotating 8 or 9 guys and people can stay reasonably healthy, it's not only a difference maker versus Virginia Tech and South Carolina and Charleston Southern, it's a difference maker versus Auburn, Kentucky, and Tennessee at the end of the season too.
Well, you mentioned the schedule, and last year was tough, and it's the same SEC opponents.
Yes.
They're just flipped away and home. But according to ESPN, second hardest schedule in the country, only behind Florida. You look at this stretch early in the season. Charleston Southern to start, tune-up game against an FCS opponent, which every school has, and it's important to have.
And don't take a swing at Charleston Southern.
No,
I spent a season
proud.
there.
Are they the Buccaneers?
They're the Bucks. Yeah. Buccaneers.
Yeah, you're a proud Buccaneer.
I don't know. But
I mean, it's just,
it was we went to Hawaii. We
really
got clobbered 66-7, but I got a couple of days in Hawaii out of the deal in 2010.
I mean, if they put Tulane on this roster or on this schedule,
I know.
you'd get to go to all of the different places.
Give it time.
Charleston Southern to start, but then these back-to-back road games. And again, as a Virginia Tech grad, I will say Blacksburg at night is a tough place to go win. It's not an impossible place to go win. Like I've seen Duke walk into Blacksburg Friday
NC
night
State clobber 'em
and win 45-10. So like it's not like it's the Terror Dome
it's
like
not
they used
Corey
to say.
Moore.
Right.
It's not all those D'Angelo Hall
the
moment.
It's going to be rocking to start, but as somebody who's been to more Virginia Tech games than I can count, Vandy, what they were best at last year in big games was starting fast. Like you look at Alabama, they got the pick 6 to go up 10-0, 14-0.
13-0,
right?
Brock missed the last time Brock Taylor missed a kick, it was the extra point versus Alabama.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Tennessee, you have the kick return for a touchdown, force a fumble, score, go up 14-0. Against Virginia Tech, you can take those fans out of the game if you just go and start fast, punch them in the mouth, and a lot of those students are heading for the doors
at halftime.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which,
I speak for myself and exclusively myself here. The Virginia Tech game worries me a little bit.
they're gonna want some get back because Virginia Tech last year was a dark horse playoff contender.
I know.
Pat McAfee picked them to go to the playoff, and then they come into Nashville, a game that everyone on that team, all of the Hokie fans who made the trip, thought they were going to be celebrating on Broadway later that night.
They sure did.
And it was sad for them walking out of that building. I know who said it. It was Randon Fontenette at kickoff said, "Yeah, I watched all of those fans heading for the exits crying, and man, that made me feel good."
Yeah.
So the Hokies are going to want their get back.
They are.
But it's a better Vanderbilt team than last year, and I would argue it's a worse Virginia Tech team.
That from a Vandy standpoint, that is the argument. That the Vanderbilt team returns Diego Pavia. They return a lot of critical pieces and have gotten, I think, generally speaking, better in the offseason. And Kyron Drones is back, but Tootin's not, Lane's not. You tell me.
Jennings.
There's a lot of pieces that
Daquan Wright
aren't back.
Mansour Delane.
The concern comes exclusively from the get back that Virginia Tech is going to want, not going into that game the way that you went into Georgia State, right? And then what that stadium can be if the games get to the right place. Like you said, that place used to be impossible for people. It was just impossible. And part of it was the players, right? It was
when you had Michael Vick and Tyrod Taylor and
Randall and Kevin Jones and all these guys that played there.
Right.
That's part of the reason it was impossible. And it has become much more manageable over the past handful of seasons. I don't know what the home record is for Brent Pry or was for Justin Fuente, but once you get through Enter Sandman, if you can weather that moment, Cardell Jones has a spin move and Ohio State does just fine in 2014 and Notre Dame goes in, I think in 2000.
Notre Dame's gone in there a couple of times
and someone ripped off a 97-yard touchdown, right? And you're fine.
Yeah.
But if your head's not squared on straight and you let the stadium get to you, I don't care what Virginia Tech's record is. We have all seen this. It holds 60 some odd thousand. It may not be filled to the brim, but they're not dropping down to 20,000 people in there because they're having a bad year. They fill it up. They could still get clobbered by South Carolina and they're going to show up. I'll never forget with Vandy baseball, a couple of years ago, went to Mississippi State, beat the Bulldogs 26-3 on a Friday, and they packed it out on a Saturday, regardless of the score.
Right.
Virginia Tech fans are going to show up. So as long as Vandy has his head squared on and is focused for that game, and I'm sure they will be. My concern is exclusively knowing what that place can be, the get back from Virginia Tech, and not going into it like Georgia State from a season ago.
It is funny. The only season I can remember as a student, Virginia Tech having a winning record at home was when Jerry Kill was on staff there. So, maybe a little bit of correlation there. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts on Vandy, we are going through Vandy's schedule, talking about the early stretch, Virginia Tech, South Carolina. There's a later stretch in October that's going to be tough as well. We'll go through that and much more with Andrew Allegretta coming up next here on Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game.
It's Alexander behind Pavia in the pistol. Newberry's in motion. There's the snap. It's a play action. Pavia rolls. He pump fakes. He steps up. He's got nowhere to go. He rolls towards the right. He throws far sideline. It is caught. It is a touchdown. Vanderbilt. A.J. Newberry out of the backfield. He holds it in. A 20-yard completion. Pavia to the running back for 6.
There you go. Andrew Allegretta on the play-by-play. Only 16 days away from getting back behind the mic at First Bank Stadium.
Seriously, it's going to be a ton of fun.
I know.
I cannot wait.
I'm sure the excitement, I mean, obviously around the team, but for you and Kevin and me, I'll be up in the booth with you. Like,
I know.
I'm excited for this season because there's just a different level of who knows where this one could go. Because like you said, last year, it was unexpected. I don't think anybody went into the season thinking Vanderbilt was going to beat Alabama. But this year, it feels like Vandy can punch with anybody, and who knows what this season could be.
As long as you've got Diego Pavia.
Right.
It does feel like you can punch with anybody. I think the best thing that he said in the Netflix doc was, and he said a lot of good things, and I'm cool with all of it, was when he got here, there was always the conversation of, okay, how do we get to 6? We can win this one. We can't win that one. We can win this one. We can't win that one. And I think my favorite thing he said was, from his perspective, I don't like that. Why can't we win all of them? That's the attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a winning program, that's the attitude. Why would it be anything else? And I understand. I get it. I absolutely understand. And we all do it. We've kind of been doing it now with the schedule. You take a look at it and you kind of say, okay, where are the projections? I get why all of us would do that. And I totally understand why Vanderbilt fans have desired to do that over the years. I get it. But if you're a winning person and you are a winning quarterback in a winning team, why would you have any other thought than, why can't we win all of the games? And I loved that change of mental makeup that Diego brought. And I think Clark has always had that, but there is a different thing when you can take coach message and bring it to players via the vehicle of somebody on the field. And Diego is exactly that. I loved that line in the doc.
Yeah, we were just talking before you came on about Cam Ward saying the Titans are going to have a top 10 offense in the league. It's like, you have to have that mentality.
Why would he say anything else?
Right. If you don't believe, no one else is going to.
No one is going to believe.
So I love that Diego has that confidence. I mean, watching him in Atlanta walk around and tell everyone they were going to win the national championship, it's like people scoff at that, but
I don't care.
If you don't think that,
right,
you're not going to be able to do it.
Because you get into moments that become challenging and your own self-talk takes over, which is like, well, we weren't supposed to win this game anyway, so I can come off the throttle some.
Yeah.
Whereas Diego admitted that he's a little bit psychotic, right? As he said in that doc as well.
Yes.
In the best possible way. He's not going to come off the throttle. And right, it was the Alabama game's a good example. They easily could have given the football back to Alabama with 2.5 minutes to go. They get the football and they do not give it back. If you've got the self-talk, like we're going to win every single game that we go into, you get the football with 2.5 to go, up by 5 versus the number 1 team in the country, and you do not give the football back.
Right. Because if you give it back to Alabama,
they're going to score.
Right. They've got Jalen Milroe. They've got Ryan Williams.
Likely.
Who was only 17 at that point. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Has he turned 18 yet?
I would hope so.
Good
right?
for him. Congratulations.
You give it back to that offense. That's when Alabama, they are like, all right, we've got a chance to go win this. We're going to do it.
Right.
Diego said, nope, you're not touching the football.
That's right.
And it ended up being, I mean, let's talk about the Netflix documentary because it is important.
I know we keep talking about the schedule and I've knocked you off course.
No, it's okay. Because I did want to get to the Netflix documentary. You're featured plenty in there.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. It's cool to hear you on both of the main Vanderbilt ones. I believe in the last one, did they go with the Tennessee call? Because that was Tennessee episode.
I kind of figured it out for the most part. They went with whoever won and the TV broadcast.
Right.
So there was a little bit of Bob Kessling in there for the Tennessee victory and Dave Pash,
right,
who had the ABC call. And for the most part, when Vandy won the game, I did sneak into the Texas game a little bit for some reason.
Yes.
Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Well, I believe because that one it was more about the Auburn win. So I guess
it was setting up
they were
the Auburn.
following Vanderbilt there. The one thing I hated about the documentary, I loved it. I thought it was great. The one thing I hated is why did they put the Arkansas win in the same episode as the Vanderbilt win over Alabama? I didn't get it. Like they gave a whole episode to DJ Lagway taking over for Graham Mertz for a Florida team that wasn't great last year. Like
I'm sure some of it is what material you have. Where does it fit?
Yeah.
And if you're going to do it, what makes sense?
Yeah.
You know, from a production standpoint, right? So they obviously got some content from Kentucky, but there wasn't a lot of time to feature it.
Yeah, they gave 10 minutes to Maxwell Hairston at the end of the last episode.
Which again, this is you're talking about they didn't get access to every single program in the Southeastern Conference, but they got a bunch.
Right.
And you're still talking about, what was it? 8 episodes, 7 or 8 episodes. And you're trying to figure out where all of that goes as a puzzle. The other part is Vanderbilt fans are overly concerned with how Tennessee loses versus Vanderbilt winning. So it made sense to find some space to let Vanderbilt fans focus first.
Right.
You know, priorities first.
Then get to the actual
and then
win over
which
Alabama.
Was fine. But, you know, the Arkansas thing, watching Iamaleava running out of bounds was clearly the highlight of that episode. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I get it. You got to fit stuff where they were, and it happened on the same Saturday.
It's a puzzle piece.
But it was just funny. I said this to Kevin last week too, is like the opening being on that Saturday, 2 nuclear bombs dropped on the SEC. I'm like, all right, like let's just tone down. Like Arkansas beat Tennessee. Like it wasn't that is not a nuclear bomb.
It's not in the same way perhaps Vanderbilt was versus Alabama. But for what it's worth, one of those 2 programs made the college football playoff and the other one didn't.
It's a very good point.
And Sam Pittman,
that saved his job.
It saved his job. Is openly in the documentary talking about, and so was Shane Beamer's wife, right? It's not when we get fired. It's not if we get fired. It's when we get fired. So for what it's worth, in the arc of that season, Arkansas beating Tennessee was a really big deal.
Yeah,
it was a really big deal for that fan base. It certainly it to an extent changed the way Tennessee's season goes. Perhaps if they win that, they get a home game at Neyland instead of
in Columbus,
going on the road versus the team that won the national championship. Right. So it was a pretty big moment. It didn't perhaps bother me. And did I enjoy watching Tennessee fall? I don't know. I'll let you be the judge.
It was just the interruptions of, like, I tuned in to watch the week of Vanderbilt beating Alabama, and it's like they go over to Fayetteville. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. I'll check my phone for a second.
I don't know. I think I do think some good storytelling is kind of weaving multiple storylines together. And if you watch a television show, they're going to do that sort of thing too. So for what it's worth, for me, it didn't bother me. And certainly we Vanderbilt got top billing,
right? Vanderbilt
by being the end of the episode.
Well, and Vanderbilt got the most airtime of any SEC school throughout the entirety of the documentary, which is, if you had said that a year ago, like, hey, they're making a Netflix documentary about the 2024 SEC season, the team that will be most featured is Vanderbilt, people would have laughed at you.
The 2 things that have happened since I have started working at Vanderbilt that I will be blown away if they happen again is, number 1, 3 consecutive walk-off home runs at home, like they did last year versus Bama, Kentucky, and Kentucky. And 2, having a more serendipitous moment than Alabama.
Right.
1, beating them the way that we did with them at number 1 in the polls. 2, to have Theo Vaughn and Willie Geis on the sideline the same day. And 3, have Nate Bargatze host SNL that night. And 4, have Netflix say, you know what, why don't we have a full crew here for this game? You could not, if the stars align in that way again, I will be blown away with whatever you're telling me happened, because to have that and all of those things collide is one of the more serendipitous things I've ever seen athletically.
Yeah, the stars aligned on that Saturday in early October, Vanderbilt beating Alabama. And I thought the Netflix documentary did a great job of featuring everything that happened leading up to that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. That'll do it for hour number 2 on the program. We've still got Andrew for another hour. Also, Vanderbilt volleyball head coach Anders Nelson joins us at 11:15. Jake Lyman, Andrew Allegretta, Nick Frazier, next man up, 1025 The Game. Final hour on this Thursday. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Andrew Allegretta, Nick Frazier broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we'll be joined by Vanderbilt volleyball head coach Anders Nelson as they prepare to return to action for the first time in 45 years. So excited for that. They've got a fun schedule lined up. We'll talk to Anders coming up at 11:15. Couple more things on the football team, Andrew. We were going through the schedule there. And I'm wholeheartedly agree with you that after last year, you can't just go through and say win, loss, win, loss. But there is a stretch in there that is not exactly favorable, having to go to Alabama. LSU comes to Nashville. Missouri, even though Missouri, I think, has taken a little bit of a step back. You lose Cook and Burden and some of their stars, but still a borderline top 25 team. And then you go to the number one team in the country in Texas. It's going to be a tough stretch. And I feel like if you can go into that stretch with only one loss,
5-0.
You want to go 5-0.
Okay.
But if you could be 4-1 heading into that Alabama game, it feels like it gives you a decent amount of cushion to go play free and not feel like, man, we can't lose. We can't lose. You go in there kind of house money a little bit and go try and pull off another upset. I mean, Alabama said they're going to kill an ant with a sledgehammer. It's like, as much as people talk about Diego giving Tennessee bulletin board material, that's plenty of bulletin board material for Clark Lee when they head down to Titletown.
Here's where I'm not a very good sports talk show host, because I'm going to say two things. One, like, I feel like I've thrown my hands up in the air when it comes to schedule predicting after last season.
Right.
7-6 does not blow me away from what Vanderbilt accomplished last season. It's how they got there that would have been the unpredictable piece of it. So I don't know. I've got no idea. And then the other piece of it is whether they go in 4-1, 5-0, 3-2. I don't know. What does their health look like?
Good point.
It's just so much of this does come down to health. It's a really talented team, and it's a team that has more depth and skill than I have seen now going into season number 5 for me personally. And Clark probably has seen. And Barton Simmons deserves a lot of credit, and so does Nick Valdesari and the whole staff over there that has put this together, and the folks that have done, the resource management behind the scenes. But everything changes on one play in football and in baseball and in basketball. So I don't know. What does their health look like? What does the other team's health look like? What does it look like for Alabama going into that moment? How did Ty Simpson do in his initial stretch? Where's their confidence? Do they have to make changes going into that game? Maybe they don't. Maybe they've been incredible. Maybe they look like a national championship team. Maybe they don't with Ty. I don't know. What's the deal with LSU? Is Garrett Nussmeier still healthy? I don't know. There's been a huge uproar about some tendonitis that he's had, I think, in one of his knees, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
Leading into this, like, Brian Kelly had to go give a whole spiel that, like, Garrett Nussmeier hasn't been hospitalized or whatever it is to the media. So who knows? Where is their mental makeup? And I kind of feel the same way down the stretch with that Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee stretch. I feel like those games are all winnable for Vanderbilt on, the level playing field. You're in a vacuum or whatever. Where's Vanderbilt's season gone to that point? I don't expect them to fade or wilt or not continue to punch when you get to November. I still expect that. They punched last year with a team that was fairly eroded physically, with Diego Pavia being banged up a little bit, and AJ Newberry got hurt, and Cedric Alexander was hurt. You didn't really have a ton of depth at the running back position late in the season, and they still beat Auburn. They still punched pretty good on Tennessee at home for the first half or so. And who knows, if a field goal doesn't doink off the crossbar and eke over and Vandy gets the football. There was a stretch in that second quarter that game, to me, psychologically could have flipped. It didn't, and that's fine. Anyway, where's everybody's mental makeup? I don't know. It's a hard schedule. I get that. Yeah. That's fine. It's the Southeastern Conference. It's going to be a hard schedule, and you can kind of parse this SEC schedule is hard and this one isn't, or whatever. And they've got, 5 preseason top 25 teams. Well, I mean, I think Vanderbilt, I get that they didn't get a vote in the top 25, which I've got some qualms.
They got votes in the coaches poll.
Okay, but Georgia Tech got more, and Vandy returns everybody,
Right.
and Vandy beat them
in the most recent data point that you have.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, I think Vandy still goes into it saying we're a top 25 team. So I don't know. We'll see. I want to know where every team is. Like, moments make the fight, styles make the fight, who's in the fight makes the fight. I don't know. It's a really tough matchup. I think Texas is outrageously good. I do think Arch Manning is going to have a good season for Texas. Do I think he's going to stub his toe a little bit at the beginning of the season?
Maybe.
Perhaps.
Yep.
They play Ohio State to start, right?
And one versus three.
And 3 is the favorite.
Yeah, I said this the other day that it's the first time, at least since 1978, the number one team is an underdog in game one.
But I think from a Vandy perspective, and this is just mind-bendingly simplistic, if Diego Pavia is out there,
you got a chance.
They're going to punch.
Yep.
And even if he's not, I think they're still going to punch. He is obviously the guy that right now, until some of the depth at quarterback can get their experience, whether it's Blaise Berlowitz or Whit Muschamp, Will Son, or whether it's Jack Elliott, who's a freshman, or Jeremy St. Hilaire, who played down in Chattanooga. Until that moment happens, it's Diego's team. I mean, it's truly one of the best seasons a Vanderbilt quarterback has ever had. It's the only season, Jake, with 20 passing touchdowns and less than 5 interceptions. If he is remotely close to that again, and it was the second most total offense in Vandy history from a quarterback, and I think any position, just from a total offensive perspective, I think only to Jake Cutler, if I'm not mistaken. It's truly one of the best seasons a Vanderbilt quarterback has ever had. If he is anywhere remotely duplicating that, they're going to be punching regardless of the easy part of the schedule, the middle part of the schedule, or the end part of the schedule.
Yeah, 100% with you. And, it's easy to look right now and say this schedule is tough. And you mentioned all SEC schedules are tough. The top 11 hardest schedules in the country are.
I mean, what
SEC
happens
schools?
if Auburn flounders and Hugh Freeze is not the coach at that moment in time? What if Joey Aguilar really does have a hard time for Tennessee? Where are the Vols going to be at the end of the season? He might be great. I don't know. He genuinely might be very,
we
very
have no
good.
idea.
I've got no idea. So
it's why you play the games.
And I don't mean to be like annoyingly simplistic with that. But again, if you plotted out 7-6 last year for Vandy, it was not with a Georgia State loss and an Alabama win.
Yeah.
It just wasn't.
Right.
So I have no idea. Are they healthy? Where's the other team?
615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, you can text or call. Phil on our text line says, Mizzou did not take a step back. Top 5 transfer class in the nation. Returned the most offensive production in the SEC. Burton barely used last year, and Cook injured all season.
And they may not. They may not take a step. But
nationally, they were a top 10 preseason team last year. They're not in the top 25 this year. So
Eli Drinkwitz has done a very good job with that program.
Yep.
There's been a couple of programs that I know Vandy fans are sitting out there going, I want to take a swing at them because I understand historically where Alabama and Texas and Georgia have been.
Right.
I want to take a pop at Mizzou. I want to take a pop at South Carolina. Both those teams have been really good lately.
Yep.
So if Mizzou is just as good, they've got, and I'm blanking on his name, but they got a pretty darn good running back. I know they got the Penn State transfer as their quarterback. Eli Drinkwitz has been a good offensive coach. And they've had good defenses despite the fact that their defensive coordinator 2 seasons ago went to LSU. So if Mizzou's equally successful, wouldn't surprise me. There's not many teams in the Southeastern Conference that if they stepped up, it would be like, wow, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Like right now, the SEC, despite the fact that the Big Ten has won back-to-back natties, the depth of the SEC is
way deeper.
Yeah.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Jake Lyman, Andrew Allegretta, Nick Frazier with you. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Vanderbilt volleyball head coach Anders Nelson to talk about the start of their new season. Here on Next Man Up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, Jake Lyman, Andrew Allegretta, Nick Frazier with you on this Thursday, and we are now pleased to be joined on our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, by the head coach of Vanderbilt Volleyball, Anders Nelson. Anders, really appreciate you taking a couple of minutes with us and excited to start the new season.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's obviously an exciting time for our program, and any chance I get to talk about it is a great day for me.
Well, Anders, you mentioned the excitement there. This is a job you've had for a while, building this program up from scratch. And now you are finally just a couple of days, a week from actually getting underway with your first regular season match. What's the excitement level for you and around your program as you finally get ready to return to competition for the first time in nearly half a century?
Yeah, it's been 2.5 years since I've coached a collegiate volleyball match that, the score actually mattered. So, of course, I'm excited to get back out there, and anyone who's a competitor feels that way. And at the same time, I haven't wished away a single day because building a program from scratch is obviously a pretty big undertaking that I wanted to be really patient about and really intentional about. So we have success 10 years from now, 20 years from now as well. I will say the players are a lot more excited, outwardly, inwardly, all the above. I think there's just a lot of butterflies going on in the best way. And, we've talked about, there better be butterflies. If you're not a little nervous, a little anxious, then, what have you been doing? This is an exciting moment and an exciting situation, and it's history. So there should be some anxiety around it in a good way.
Looking at your schedule, you've built it out where there are going to be a lot of eyes on your program right away. You're going to maybe one of the focal points of collegiate volleyball in Lincoln, Nebraska to play Kansas to start off. That's on national television. You're playing an outdoor match against Belmont on Wyatt Lawn for your first match in Nashville, and then playing at Bridgestone Arena. What went through the scheduling process for your first year to try and challenge your team and get some eyes on Vanderbilt volleyball as you restart this program?
Yeah, I think special moments, garner special opportunities. And that's part of it is people around the country, especially in the volleyball community, understand how rare what we're doing is. The last SEC team to add volleyball was in 1991, and we're the last one to do it. So it's overdue in some ways. And also people are excited about seeing a new program. It just doesn't happen very often. And for us to have a 45-year hiatus, I think it just warrants some attention. On top of that, I knew that we were going to have a lot of eyes on us early in the season, of course, because of our situation. So we wanted to leverage it and put ourselves in position to make a splash and to create some noise. And, certain things like the Broadway block party, that kind of fell into place. And the Nashville Sports Council was already planning on hosting a big tournament here. And it just coincidentally worked that we were starting our program the first year they decided to do it. So these are all things that I believe make up the most exciting 3-match start to the season in college volleyball of what we get to do, and they're all nationally televised. And also our team has sacrificed a lot to be in this situation. The bulk of them have spent the entire year redshirting and playing against ourselves. So I almost felt like a little bit of a duty to prepare a schedule that rewards them for their patience and courage.
Coach Andrew Allegretta, what's going on? How are you?
I'm good, Andrew. Good to hear from you again.
Great to hear from you, Coach. Man, I want to get back, and I know you've talked about this a bunch, to the building of a program thing. But first off, tell us a little bit about, because let's get fans out there to the Wyatt Lawn match versus Belmont. That is Friday, August 29th. And then there's the Broadway block party, which you guys will take on Illinois on Sunday. Tell us about those events and what's going to make those special and why those will be really fun for fans.
Yeah, just to start, volleyball is exploding in popularity across the country. And the reason is because our product is elite. And I know I'm biased in saying that, but it is a really exciting sport to watch. We just jump tested yesterday, and with an approach, we had 5 athletes touch over 10.5 feet. So they're touching over 6 inches higher than a basketball rim. Like, these young women fly. And our sport allows them to be super athletic. And that's what I'm most excited for our fans to see, is just the pure athleticism that these young women possess. But match 1 is going to be something, home opener unlike any other, like we have in the tagline of the promo video. It was actually suggested to me to start by someone in administration and someone in the department that we hosted on Broadway. And it was kind of a joke, but we looked into it. And the Grand Prix is also that weekend downtown, so that kind of took precedent. And then the next suggestion was, because, this is such a monumental moment for Vanderbilt and not just Vanderbilt athletics, like, why don't we do it on campus? And then it turned into, now it's a required event for the freshman class, the class of 2029. It's part of their orientation experience. So it became, okay, now this is how we create our student section, and this is how we create buy-in from freshmen who are going to be able to come to matches for the next 4 years. But it's crazy what we're trying to undertake. I mean, they're building a 2,500 to 3,000 seat, temporary arena in the middle of a lawn on campus. So it's going to be crazy. And then we're going to follow it up with a concert by Julia Cole afterwards. And honestly, we want this to be a core memory of our Vanderbilt employees and our Vanderbilt students. Like, I want them to remember this for a long time, and to remember that, the volleyball program starting was a big part of their career as well. And then jumping to the Broadway block party 2 days later down at Bridgestone Arena. What a cool thing to be a part of. It's 3 SEC teams against 3 Big Ten teams. The SEC and Big Ten are no doubt the best 2 conferences in volleyball, just like pretty much every other sport at this point. So it's going to be great volleyball all day. And I talked to the Nashville Sports Council a couple of weeks ago, and they've been blown away by the ticket sales. So I think we're going to surprise people with just the amount of people that are going to come out and watch us play. And partially because we're brand new, and partially because volleyball is awesome, and partially because these 3 matches are really cool.
Shout out to Julia Cole, a Vanderbilt graduate. So that's very fitting to have her perform. She's performed at the Opry as well. So that's very, very cool.
She actually, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
She played club volleyball at Vanderbilt.
That's right.
Met with administration while she was here to say, hey, we need to add a volleyball program. So she reached out to me when I got the job and has been nothing but supportive. And we locked her up for this a long time ago, and she has absolutely blown up recently. And it's really cool to see somebody who works so hard and cares so much about this place have success.
Yeah, she's very supportive of Vanderbilt athletics, which has been awesome. Coach, I know you've talked about it a ton, but I sure do think one of the most interesting things about you guys is what it means to build a program from scratch. And we've talked about this a bunch, but on the shorter, smaller side of a question, can you give us maybe like the most granular thing that you've had to do when it comes to building a program? Because like I get recruiting players and, figuring out a schedule and, practice, whatever. What's the most granular thing that you've had to do that perhaps caught you off guard when it comes to building a program?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me too, in the start, I'll go with this, is just prioritizing. Like, I got here and it was just me, and we were 2.5 years away from, playing a match. I hadn't hired a staff yet. And I remember sitting in the desk one of those first couple of days, and I was like, well, where the heck do I start? And that was probably one of the things that I just relied on some people that I'm close to, including my executive coach that Vanderbilt's hired for me to meet with weekly. But he really pushed me to create systems and create a really, tight way that we work and organize things. We built that whole thing to sustain, our program in moments of high stress and high excitement. And that's what we're going through right now. So that's really it's a boring answer, but spending 2.5 years just getting our systems in place and getting our priorities right. And then I would say the fun part has just been selling the dream. It's fun to sit back and sell a dream, and then to have people realize that they want to be a part of it too.
Coach, last one for you. You're joining Vanderbilt at such a time of growth, not just Vandy United and all of the renovations going on, but such a great year for football and both basketball teams last year and soccer. To jump in on this upward ascent of Vanderbilt athletics, how much do you think that can help your program as you start up year one coming up in just a couple of days?
I'm from northern Wisconsin. It's a tiny town of 2,000 people. And I was sitting up in that area shortly after the Alabama football win last year. And I was wearing a Vanderbilt hat. And somebody came up to me and basically talked about the football game. And it was somebody that shouldn't have any knowledge of Vanderbilt. They're from the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. They have no ties to the university, and they talked. So that's what that did for Vanderbilt. It's just the brand got thrown in everyone's faces in the best way. But iron sharpens iron. I look around the department, and they've made so many strides, these individual programs that you've discussed since I've been here. And it just pushes me to be better, and it pushes me to want to win just like they do and create, almost a shift in mindset of what this place can be. And Candace is a leader like no other, and I know people know that, but getting to work closely with her, there is nobody like Candace Story-Lee, and we are so lucky to have her at the helm. And she makes me want to be successful as well. So it's all good, and it only helps us to have success in other programs as well.
Coach, thanks so much for your time. Really looking forward to the season getting started. Again, first regular season matches in Nebraska on August 23rd, but a couple of exhibitions coming up tomorrow against Fisk at Memorial Gym, and then a black and gold scrimmage next Tuesday. So really excited and wish you the best of luck as you start up this season next week.
Thank you so much. Both of those exhibitions are free and open to the public. Obviously, we're doing our run through of how a volleyball match will run in Memorial. But yeah, it's an exciting time, and I hope people will come out and watch us play.
Head coach Anders Nelson from Vanderbilt Volleyball. Again, thanks so much for taking the time. Looking forward to seeing the program get back out on the hardwood for the first time in nearly half a century. We'll take a quick break here on Next Man Up. When we come back, we'll get back into some Vandy football stuff with Andrew Allegretta, the voice of Vanderbilt football, and talk around the SEC to wrap up the show. Jake Lyman, Andrew Allegretta, Nick Frazier, Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Final half hour on this Thursday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Andrew Allegretta, Nick Frazier with you. Great chat there with Vanderbilt volleyball head coach Anders Nelson. Excited for them. A new program at Vanderbilt getting started. And as we were talking about, like they're not waiting. There's no tune-up games. They're going out and playing Kansas in Nebraska. They're playing outdoors on Wyatt Lawn for their first home match, and then going downtown and playing Illinois on Broadway in Bridgestone Arena. So excited for that. It'll be a new program out there at Vandy, another fall sport to go along with football.
And they get to go to the Thunderdome in Santa Barbara, California.
Is that what they call it out there?
Yeah.
The Thunderdome.
They'll play Cal on September 10th, and then on a Friday, September 12th at UC Santa Barbara, the Thunderdome.
Wow.
And then they get to go to Diddle up in Bowling Green.
Yeah.
That'll be fun too.
I found out we're going to Diddle again this year.
Oh, yeah.
For, I believe it's the third game of the year. I was going through it and I haven't actually counted.
It's a fun arena,
So
man.
that's the first game I ever called with Vandy women's basketball was
Diddle.
in Diddle.
Nice.
And I believe it will be my 100th game out there in Diddle again. So
okay.
bookended with trips up to
it.
Bowling Green.
I love it.
For my first 100 games with Vandy women's basketball. Back to football quickly here. We're really excited for the season. And I think you can feel the excitement from Vandy fans. But you mentioned during one of the breaks that the national perspective.
Is this when
you said you want to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. The national perspective around Vandy is, well, it's Vanderbilt. They won't do it again. And there's really just a lack of analysis when you say that.
That's the whole thing, isn't it?
Right. Like they might be right. There's a
be.
chance they're right, but you're just scouting helmets.
Yes.
You're scouting the logo instead of actually looking at the team and saying, hey, they were good last year. They added to this team. Maybe they could be just as good or better this year.
Look. Tread lightly. So there's been a handful of columns and all of that sort of stuff projecting it's talking season. This is the time to do projections.
It's list season. Yeah.
It's list season. It's watch list season. It's all of that sort of stuff. Okay. Far too much of the conversation. And I will admit, I might have a blind spot because some of it, before I generate a thought about whatever I've just read, I'm trying to decide, is this person intentionally trolling, right? Is this clickbait or is this a thoughtful piece of literature or a video? So I get that, like, at times I have reacted to something I have seen being a black and gold person and gone, this is foolish.
Yep.
And then I step back and I go, it also is probably clickbait. Okay, fine. But it has repeated itself enough times that it's become like cumbersome and annoying. Like enough conversation around Vanderbilt football, to your point, has been they're going to regress simply because they're Vanderbilt.
Right.
What a foolish, simplistic, reflexive thing to do. And I get some of the national media type have to write about everybody. That's a lot of information and biases take over. I'm trying to give all of the benefit of the doubt.
Right. It's hard to analyze 130 teams and actually have thoughtful analysis
of everybody. So I get that. And, you know, the first one that came out, and I'll list him by name because at least there was thought out there. Like Bill Connolly does the SP Plus stuff for ESPN, and he projected a regression for Vanderbilt of about 5 victories. Well, he's got an algorithm that kind of spits that sort of stuff out. And Bill's, I've spoken to him in the past when I was at Tulane. He's a thoughtful guy. He's a Mizzou guy, which doesn't mean anything, but I'm just saying it. I disagree with like how he has arrived at that, because some of that revolved around the regression of starts on the offensive line and this perceived ability to get field position that went their favor. And I felt like it lacked kind of an awareness about that's how they play. Like
that's what they want to do.
They got field position because they strive for field position. They got turnovers because they strive for the turnovers and winning those battles. And it felt like the way that he spit it out kind of glossed over that, but that's fine. He at least put the analysis in. There was one that I read that it was clickbait, but like someone wrote, Vanderbilt's going to regress because Vanderbilt is Vanderbilt, and then a flimsy statistic around close wins, which completely negated the close losses to Georgia State, Missouri, Texas, It was weird. So if you think that Vanderbilt is going to regress this season for a specific reason, that's cool, man. Like, you give me your reason. I might disagree with the reason, but like, at least you thought about
Back it up.
The ones that are throwing stuff out there, well,
It's Vanderbilt.
it's Vanderbilt. So what could they possibly do better than 7-6? Look, man, I don't know. It's really weird. And then, it's just, we have, I'm trying to do this without like flame throwing. And
Right.
there's times where I want to flame throw. But I don't know where the season's going to go, man. I really don't. But if you spend time with the Vanderbilt team in the preseason, again, you have learned that this team is talented. It is arguably more talented than a season ago. They have lost some key pieces. Quincy Skinner on the outside as a wide receiver was a great blocker. They've got to figure that out for their scheme. They've lost a lot of starts along the offensive line, which allowed them for the most part to minimize penalties and at least be in the right spot at the right time. But in theory, they have augmented the skill set. So there might be some stubbed toes. You forget, at the beginning part of the season, Vanderbilt struggled with penalties. They were oddly at the bottom of the league and then surged through October and November. That could happen again with a new offensive line, but arguably it's more talented. Anybody that is throwing out a regression for Vanderbilt on the basis of color, logo, it is candidly disappointing, I think, is kind of what it is. Even if your intention is to clickbait, to troll, fine. It's still candidly disappointing. But it's our job to go out and back it up and change the way people see the black and gold. And I think Clark welcomes, not that he's focused on the team, and Diego's focused on the team, but I think he welcomes that burden of changing the way people receive the logo and have received the logo for decades. I mean, heck, he said it in the Netflix doc that he came, as egotistically as it might be perceived, to be the savior of the program. And I don't think he means it with that quite weight, but what it means on his heart for people to receive Vanderbilt differently is huge. And I think Diego will walk through fire to prove people wrong.
Right.
So even the top 25 poll baffles me. It baffles me to see a Georgia Tech. And they're good. I'm not saying Georgia Tech's bad.
I mean,
they've got a good quarterback back. They've got a good running back back. I get all of those things, but it is simply a product of, well, like, hey, they're in the ACC and Vandy's in the. Vandy just beat them in a healthy fashion.
Yes.
And
the last time we saw either of these teams play,
beat them cleanly.
Yep.
And a large chunk of all of the pieces that you're using to both elevate one program and regress another are there.
Yeah.
So it's wild. It's wild. And I will take deep satisfaction watching this team stay in the fight for all 12, 13, 14, whatever it ends up being games. If the health is there, the Vanderbilt 2025 season is going to be wildly competitive and fun to watch. Wins and losses, I don't know. I've stopped that nonsense long ago, but provided the health is there, they're going to be wildly competitive. And you know what, if the first step up the ladder is people trying to knock you back down the ladder, okay, that's fine. I feel like I watched it in baseball to an extent. Like, one of the weirder things that happened, and cut me off when you got to cut me off.
No, you're good.
Okay. One of the weirder things that happened in Hoover last year was Vandy was the quote unquote like darling that the fans wanted to root for against Tennessee.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I mean, they won the national championship. Tony Vitello has a good program and they have been successful, and they obviously have produced in the postseason. For years, Vandy was the team that nobody wanted to root for because we were the annoying team on top.
Yep.
This stuff is cyclical, right? Like if you're going to be the upstart team, you're going to come up with some resistance, and then all of a sudden you're the fun, plucky team to root for. But like we don't want you to rise too far, right? Like now you're upsetting the order of things,
Right.
and then you get to the top, and then people want to hate on you again, and then maybe you take a step to where you didn't want to be, and then now you're swinging at Goliath. The narratives move and change within the moment. So the sobriety comment is that we're reading kind of the progression in the arc of a narrative. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if you're going to be the team that's rising, well, people aren't going to believe it, and they're going to take a swat at you, and nobody wants Vandy to. Paul Feinbaum can say what he wants on the Netflix doc about like you want to hug Vandy and whatever.
Right.
Nobody, all of the true giants aren't going to want to see Vanderbilt totally disrupt the order. We want to disrupt the order. That's fine. I just feel like we're going through that like natural progressive arc of a narrative, and it's just at times it's like I don't know all of these people super well, but I know them well enough to know that like to an extent you're just being dismissive.
Right.
And what an absurd thing to do. Take 8 seconds and see that Phil Steele has Vanderbilt as the most experienced team back in the Southeastern Conference. Like regression is possible. It is possible because it's sports and injuries happen and all of that sort of stuff. But regression is an odd take for Vanderbilt right now with the amount of experience back on the team. And and if your argument is regression is like 2 wins, 3, I don't, it's an odd, lazy. When I was at Syracuse coming out, they had something called the lazy announcer bingo card, and you just could sit there and watch a game, and you just knew where all of the takes were going to go. Be like, did you know Syracuse plays a 2-3 zone? Jim Boeheim has gone with this his entire. You put a little chip down on the lazy announcer bingo card. To some extent, I'm watching that unfold with Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's going to regress simply because of the logo on the helmet. I don't know. We'll see what happens with the wins and losses, but it's not because of the logo on the helmet.
Right. And that's, you can say they're going to regress, but saying they're going to regress just because they're Vanderbilt is the issue.
I think the one that it was David Hale.
Yeah, it was David Hale.
It was David Hale.
You tweeted this one out.
It's just, again, in his profile, he calls himself a gadfly.
Yeah.
Okay. So the gadfly in this particular case was a gadfly. So did he get me? Perhaps he got me. But what a just stomach churning sentence to write. It's dismissive. If it wasn't so darn dismissive, I think that's what it's just so darn dismissive. Yeah. It's so evident of either intentionally trying to be dismissive or not actively looking at information. So whatever, let's go put the ball on the tee for Charleston Southern, and we'll see if Vanderbilt regresses because they're Vanderbilt, or if they produce more, or if they regress perhaps because somebody got hurt. Like we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Season happens.
16
but
days.
It's not because they wear black and gold.
Correct. I have one more thought on that. We'll get to that after the break. 615-737-1025. Final segment coming up. Next man up here on 1025 The Game. Wrapping up the show here on this Thursday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Andrew Allegretta, Nick Frazier, Chasing Big Joe coming up next at the top of the hour. Also, Paul Kaharski will join me for all 3 hours tomorrow as we preview Titans and Falcons preseason game number 2 tomorrow night, 6 p.m. kick. I had one final thought on the conversation around the national analysis of Vanderbilt regression. It's a huge deal that Diego Pavia is back because there would be a natural regression if you had to replace him this year, because there isn't just somebody sitting out there who can run the offense as efficiently as he can and has the mentality that he does. And it would be easy if Vandy did take a step back this year to say 2024 was a fluke. I think having Diego back and being able to hopefully build on that and then finding the next quarterback when the program around him continues to grow is going to be huge to avoid that narrative of, oh, well, they had one good year and then they're back, same old Vanderbilt.
100%. 100%. I do feel like Diego's existence is not necessarily getting the attention that it deserves. And to an extent, he's easy to dismiss. Like, if you want to be the guy that talks about Arch Manning or whoever, DJ Lagway, you're doing it because of the skill set. Two things on that. I think Diego's skills as a quarterback often get overlooked. The narrative around Diego is absolutely about the leadership. It's about the savvy. Still one of my favorite plays of the entire season last year was taking a sack late versus Kentucky to keep the clock going. He's so instinctively smart, but his skill set is overlooked. Does he throw an NFL deep ball at the moment?
Right.
Maybe not, but he's got the arm strength to make the throws. And I think that's one of the things that maybe even I missed about Diego watching him in fall camp a season ago is it's hard to figure that stuff out. And then you watch them play. Does he chuck it? Joe Milton, 85 yards. Well, Joe Milton couldn't be accurate with his 85 yards or his 65 yards or with whatever. For the most part, Diego's pretty darn accurate. I think he was about 60% completion last year. I get that his stats aren't all over the place. That's fine. But he is a skilled quarterback. He is a leader of all leaders, truly one of the greatest likely that Vanderbilt football has ever seen. And I don't say that lightly. There's been great ones with Whit Taylor in 1982 and all sorts of stuff, but truly one of the greatest. I do feel like his existence has been almost brushed aside as people attempt to analyze where Vanderbilt's going to go this year. They could regress. I hope not. I don't think so. The skill set is there to have a successful season, but we'll see how the styles and the fights come together based on health and timing and all of that sort of stuff and fluky stuff that happens in football.
Right. That's why they play the games. As Rand Carthon used to say, the ball's not round. Sometimes it doesn't bounce your way. Sometimes it does. Andrew, thanks for coming on.
It's been fun.
Yeah, been a fun 2 hours. And I'm sure we'll do this again throughout the football season, which, again, for Vandy, gets underway 16 days from now, right here on 102.5 The Game against Charleston Southern.
Right here on 102.5 The Game and 94.9 The Fan when the Preds start up as well.
Yes. Obviously, Pred season right around the corner, too. But excited for a new season. Again, Charleston Southern, 16 days from now, then Virginia Tech and South Carolina. That will just about wrap it up for us here on the show. Again, as I mentioned, Paul Kaharski going to be in with me tomorrow for all 3 hours. You just heard his great appearance on Robbie and Rex Road earlier this morning. So we'll have him from 9 to noon tomorrow previewing the Titans preseason game against Atlanta. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next here on 102.5 The Game.